Hey, this is Brandon Crawford from the San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants.
Let's go, Giants!
With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast.
Standing on time, not gonna stop. We came to play, ain't slowing down. Falling on, we're here to stay, and we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a Giant tonight.
It's Monday, June 5th, 2017, and this is episode 124 of The Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of your last place, San Francisco Giants. Joining me tonight from Florida, as usual, is Eric Nathanson. Eric, what's up tonight?
Not much. It's an early game, so we get to put the Giants to bed earlier on this night.
Yeah, we do.
But hey, they're winning, so it's one night of good, better baseball.
They're winning. It's a rarity. We thought maybe they would go into Philadelphia and start this road trip off right, and they did, but they didn't wind up doing what they needed to do. But that's the first time we've recorded in 2 weeks, and 2 weeks ago they had won 8 out of 10. They were up to 6 games under 500, and it looks like they were creeping back into it. We were getting a little excited, but apparently we were getting ahead of ourselves because since then they went 3-9. Now, granted, if they win tonight, that'll be 4-9. But still, that's not good.
No, it's horrible.
And I know they were playing like the Cubs and they lost 3 out of 4 and things like that. But they were also playing the Atlanta Braves, where they did win against them. But the Phillies. I mean, that's. I just want to start off there, just because it's the most recent series. They're going to Philly, and the very first game, they just rout them. I mean, the most runs they scored all year. The previous to the 10-0 shutout win, complete game, by the way, by Ty Block, their highest total was 8. So things were looking up. And Philly is the team that you have to beat up on. They're the worst in all the majors. Granted, not much worse than the Giants, but they're still the worst. And unfortunately, in the next 2 games, they kind of coughed it up. And the third game, I think, was the most painful out of the 3, just because it was a game that they could have and should have won. And they scored 7 runs, and that's usually enough to win in Major League Baseball. But their bullpen and, of course, Matt Moore did not do very well. And they ended up losing 2 out of 3 to Philadelphia, and that was the first time in 5 weeks, Eric. I mean, 5 weeks that Philadelphia won a series. And that's insane.
I knew they were bad. I didn't know they were that bad, because that's really bad. I had a feeling Friday that they'd go out and do what they did, but it was facing that kid on Saturday that screwed them up. It's facing a guy for the first time, and so they couldn't get into the Phillies bullpen, and then by the time that they had a chance to, they were defeated. I don't want to take anything away from Block on Friday night, because Block was phenomenal. He wants to stay in the rotation forever, and so far so good. And then yesterday, just having it making the big comeback and dropping it, it was just indicative of what this team is doing all season, kind of running into a brick wall over and over and over again.
Over and over. I mean, the stats bear it out. We'll get into some of that later, but this team, I know a lot of people, we've talked about this ad nauseum. I know the injuries hurt, but and they've started 8 or 9 different guys in left field. Now they got Austin Slater up, and they have Caliste and all these other guys. It's I don't know, man. This is just getting to the point where they're still, we'll talk about trade deadline stuff later, but it's getting to the point where they got to still try. They definitely should not give up. It's still too early for that, but we're getting to the point in the season where, we talked before, they got to win 10 in a row or 12 out of 15 or something to get back into it. But even if they did that right now, I'm afraid even if they creep within 6 of the division lead, that can't be sustained, and that's the problem, is that they're not going to magically turn it around for months. They could turn it around for 2 weeks, and they're going to do what you just said. They're going to hit a brick wall again.
They showed us they can do that. As you said, last podcast we did, it was all right, they've won 8 of 10, so they can do that, but they're they're not gonna. Once they get back to 6 games, they'll fall back 7, 8, 9, 10. They're just not good enough to sustain it. There's too many like weak links in the chain. I think it's time. I mean, I said it from before the season started. I'm gonna say the I told you so guy once, but before the season started, I said I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs. I don't think they're as good this year. I didn't think they were this bad.
No, I don't think anyone did.
Right, but I'm ready to see the kids. I'm ready to see, Slater playing every day. I'm ready to see what Tyler Beatty has to offer. I'm ready to see who's the other guy. Brian Reynolds has been down there, who's been mashing the crap out of the ball. And I'm ready to see some of these young guys, and even some young guys in the bullpen take, roles. And let's see what the Giants got. This obviously is not going to be a season where they contend for a title. At least see if they're going to have to retool or restock, because all they've done for a few years is just, add parts, and they're going to have to subtract some parts to make them better at this point.
I think they're going to have to as well. You include the second half of last year, and they made the playoffs, and they gave the Cubs a good run, and if they had won that fourth game, who knows what would have happened. But, they're like 50. I don't have it written down here, but I think I recall they're 53-77 since the second half of last year, and so there's a continuum here. They're getting close to a full season since the All-Star break of last year. They're getting close, and they're on a 100 loss pace almost over those last two halves, and it's not looking good. They can't sustain anything, and we may have to look to some trades, which we'll get to in a little bit. But let's talk about where they are right now. They're 23-35. That's their. Now they're about to be 24. Yeah, about 24-35.
Yeah,
did they just finish it? Okay, great. Yeah, so they're 24-35. They're 11 games under 500. But before tonight, they had matched their deepest deficit in terms of under 500 for the year. Like we said earlier, they did pull within 6. Before tonight, I don't have all the updated stats right now and game scores. 12.5 games back. Last place, 2 games ahead of Philly for worst in Major League Baseball. I mean, no team is worse in the American League, which is pretty bad. And so ESPN, I mean, we've seen all the local articles, McCovey Chronicles and Bags and Pavs and those guys talking about maybe they're going to start thinking about the front office talking to other teams. And it's still a little early for that. No trades are going to be executed anytime soon. But discussions start. And probably Bobby Evans has already gotten a couple phone calls. Just feelers. Just like, hey, so how you feeling today? You have a nice coffee today? You get a nice bowel movement going on there? How you feeling?
How was your Memorial Day? Things like that.
A little small talk, right?
Moved into June now, yep.
Yeah, and so ESPN published an article yesterday, and they titled it, "Is It Time to Break Up the Giants?" And they cited with quotes from Buster Posey and Bruce Bochy that this is a new feeling for them, and they didn't have good years in 2011 and 2013, and not necessarily in 2015, although they were in it most of that year. They were still kind of in it all of those years. They were in it until the last month of the season. They've never been in this position this early in the season, so it's just getting to the point where the front office at least has to think about it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt. Bobby Evans is not sitting there. I know externally to the reporters he's saying the right things. He's saying it's too early. You never know what might happen. But internally, absolutely the gears are turning. They're looking at their depth. They're looking at prospects. They're looking at what they got to trade.
Okay, so I read through that article. It was funny, like right when we hooked up on tonight, and I noticed the guys with no trade clauses is Bumgarner, Posey, Crawford, Pence, Melanson. Pence, I don't mind as much because his contract's up after the end of next year. But it makes you wonder, who do they look at to be the core that they want to continue to build around? Because if you're going to subtract guys, you got to know that you're going to keep Posey, Crawford, Belt, Bumgarner, Panic, and Pence. I guess. I don't know. Pence isn't producing much. I don't see much coming from him anymore.
No.
but Shark seems to be somebody who's also part of the core that they're keeping because of the way he's pitching and things like that. So it makes you debate, where do they take, which guys they keep, so that, where can they subtract? They can subtract in the outfield places, so they can try different things out there, because what they have right now, that's what they got to be looking at. That's why Brian Reynolds has played left field a ton. That's why other guys are getting innings in. That's why Nunez is playing third, to showcase that trade value.
Mm-hmm. I think you're absolutely right.
And he's doing a great job. He's caught fire since they stopped moving him around.
Mm-hmm.
If only they had this Nunez during all that crap.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I have it in the notes here about those no trade clauses. And so, for those of you who are not familiar with that, the player has to agree to it. And clearly they're not going to trade Bum or Posey or Crawford. Those three we know are solid. They're just not giving those guys up. Pence, like you said, I think is a possibility, and I hate the fact that that's a possibility, only because I really like Pence as a person. I think he's just means so much to the team in terms of chemistry. Obviously, what he's done in the past in 12 and 14, but he's gotten to the point where he was Iron Man. He had at one point had 400 and something consecutive starts a couple of years ago, and then the last 2-3 years, he's been on the shelf a ton. So now he's beginning to have an injury history. The problem is that the other teams know that, and do they want to trade for a guy that could give him a little bit of lift in the outfield, but at the same time could go down at any moment? You have the same thing with Belt, not necessarily injuries, because he's been kind of bitten by the bad luck bug with the concussions and everything like that. But no matter how much we expect he's finally going to have that breakthrough year, he's finally going to hit 25 home runs, he's going to hit 300, he's going to drive in 100, it's just not happening. It's just not happening.
Well, I got to be honest. To be fair, I think since he's been slotted in the 3-hole, he's hit better. Again, with getting a guy getting comfortable in their position, I'd call Belton untouchable. I think he's somebody that they don't necessarily want to give up, and unless they're trying to offload that money suddenly. Mm-hmm. And we know the Giants have been printing money for years, so hopefully they still are. But I think Belt's untouchable. I think
Panic is not untouchable, but I don't want to see him go. But at the same time, he's a pretty cheap contract. They might be able to get value for him. Matt Moore. Now, he's having a bad year this year. There's no doubt about it. His contract is favorable, though, to another team that might want to take him on. The Giants have him locked up for, another 2.5 years, I guess. And he's proven his value last year. They wouldn't have made the playoffs without him. This year is another story, so that's another potential. Now, you mentioned the Shark, which, of course, he started this year just on a horrendous slide, and he's technically on pace for, before today's game, 22 losses, because he was 1-8 coming into tonight. So, and he'd be the first 20-game loser since 1918 or some bullshit like that. I don't think he's going to get to 20 losses, but he's been pitching lights out lately. His control has been pretty impeccable. His home run rate is down. It's not gone, but it's there. But
he doesn't walk anyone.
And he doesn't walk anyone. That's the thing. He's so valuable because of the pitch count and because he doesn't walk anyone. Yes, he gives up gopher balls. There's no doubt about that. But he's very valuable to a team that may want a starter who has a high-powered offense that can absorb a couple of those long balls, but for the trade-off is 7 innings pitched, right? And maybe a quality start or maybe 4 innings pitched, because someone like the Astros or these high-powered offenses that they're like, oh, a guy gives up 2 bombs a game, that's okay. We score 8. That's all right. We just need innings, So the Giants can't survive with that.
No, it's funny. The Cubs Twitter and the Cubs little blogging world had a little chatter about them possibly looking for Samardzija for that very reason, because he can eat up meaty innings and it'd be fine to give up long balls. I don't think he'd go back to the Cubs though.
No, I think
Johnny.
So, yeah.
I think Johnny Cueto though is a more possibility as a trade candidate than any of the starting pitchers.
Now he's the number 1 target. I was going to mention him. By the way, Shark has a no trade clause for 21 teams. It's a very odd contract, but basically, if the Giants want to trade him to one of 21 teams, he can say no to it. But I guess there's another 8 teams that he has no control over. So that's interesting. I don't know who those teams are. That hasn't been published. So that would play into his tradability. But Cueto, yeah, I think he's the number 1 target. And you can look at it 2 ways, fortunately or unfortunately. I think if he was having his typical Cueto season, the Giants certainly would have 2 to 4 more victories right now. But they would still be, 9 games out of first place.
Right.
That he's not making the complete difference in this season. And I think everyone knows where he can be, especially down the stretch with any team. He was valuable in Kansas City after that trade. He was obviously valuable for the Giants last year. He had an unbelievable year last year, 2.79 ERA. And he still has the ability to get his stats down to the 3 ERA range if he catches fire. But he's someone that you have to look at because he can exercise the option. They actually have him signed through, I think, 2018 or 2019, but he has the option to opt out. So the trick of that is that a team has to look at it not necessarily as just a rental, because Cueto may only want to be traded if they're going to sign him for a long-term deal. That said, he could accept a trade to a contender for a rental and then, of course, opt out and then sign for the big bucks if he performs well down the stretch.
Oh, man, Houston. You mentioned Houston. I'm thinking that's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think from the Giants' perspective, even if they were having a good year this year, and let's say they made the playoffs, I still think Cueto would have bounced or would bounce.
Yeah,
so,
I do too.
You got to look at it that way, just like every team does. You look at your assets and you go, okay, do we think this guy's going to absolutely want to re-sign with the Giants this year? No. No, there's no way. I think the chances are really low. So then you have to look at it from the perspective of what can we get from him then if we're not going to make the playoffs?
Well, what if Cueto, here's the flip side of it from Cueto's side. What if Cueto just keeps, underperforming all season long, and then he's trapped in that, oh no, I got to play out the next 3 years of this contract now because if I go on the open market, I'm not going to make as much money as the $21 million I'm making with the Giants.
And that's a really good point.
Right, or whoever, because he has not pitched like a $21 million man. He's just not been the ace that the Giants needed. Granted, he's had blisters and problems and things like that, but it's just not stepped up and taken the lead when he needed to. So if he stays this way all season, I mean, there's always going to be teams that are going to pay $20 million for pitching. Does he, take it as a wash? Does he? It's a lot for him to consider and then exercise the rights to get traded. So you have to wonder if they'd negotiate in ahead of time. If he says you guarantee me, next year, then I promise I won't walk away from the deal and we can restructure something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you there because unfortunately the way Major League Baseball is going, there are teams that are going to pay $21 million for him, even if he has a 4.5 ERA this year. It's going to happen. And it's not because it's based on this year. It's based on his career. And he's still relatively young. And they're going to chalk it up to what you just mentioned. Oh, yeah, blisters, a couple of games, and this and that and this and that. So you take all that into account, and he's probably better than what he was this year. So I think there are going to be suitors, maybe fewer of them. So, but you're right. I mean, there is a possibility that he gets offers from only a few teams for basically what they match the Giants' contract for. And at that point, he would have to make that decision. Now, on the Giants' side, though, is that if they're faced with, and I hate to say this, if they're faced with potentially rebuilding for a year or two, because what they have right now in terms of long-term, it doesn't look good on paper. And if they get some prospects for any trades, they're obviously not going to have instant return in 2018. So unless something magical happens, like your, Michael Morse's and others overperforming, or Panic busts out and hits 350, or you have these guys that have career years in 2018, you don't expect it. So the Giants re-signing Johnny Cueto, or I shouldn't say re-signing, him not opting out, because they have signed him through next year. Him not opting out, they suddenly have to pay him $21 million. And do the Giants want that, knowing that most likely they may not be able to contend in 2018?
That's the decision. That's the overall decision that needs to be made. Are we going to compete from the front office standpoint? Are they going to compete, or in 2018, or are they just going to commit to the rebuild? And that's where they have to decide, because payroll is like top 5 in baseball for a team that's
mm-hmm.
yeah, So they have to make that internal decision, and that's what Bobby Evans. I almost said Bob Evans. I have sausage on the brain for some reason. Maybe I need some breakfast. That's what he's got to debate, and that's what they got to talk about internally. Like, how do you move those pieces, but like find that delicate balance? Because it's like you said, they haven't been in this situation. We haven't been in this situation since 2009. With the Giants.
Yep.
Right, and even 2009, they had a good year. Pablo had a breakout year. Things were starting to look up. They won like 83 games, 84 games or something like that year. And it was starting to look like a turnaround. So even back to 08, 07 was the last time we really had to deal with Giants teams that weren't that good. I can't see this as a 100-loss team, but they're going to have to retool, and they have to decide if they want to compete next year or 2 years from now.
The other thing that's backing all of this up as far as needing a trade is that the Giants farm system, by all accounts, is not very rich right now. ESPN ranks them 20th out of the 30 clubs, and only one player, that's Tyler Beatty, cracks the top 100 at number 62. So, you look at the Cubs and the Yankees and the Astros and other teams like that, and they're not only good teams right now, but they have really rich farm systems. And so a lot of those guys, and you mentioned Houston. Now, of course, they have a ridiculous lead in the Central. Or the West. It's just stupid.
They're so good, apparently.
I think they would, if they sustain this lead or lengthen it by the trade deadline. I don't think they would trade for Samardzija to lock up the West. They would trade for Samardzija or Cueto or someone like that for the playoffs, right?
Yeah,
that's what
absolutely.
They're going for. But you have other teams like the Yankees and the Cubs that recently had a long losing streak, although they swept the Cardinals. And other teams that may need to bolster their starting rotation now. I know Shark may not be good in Chicago because he was already there, but so there are teams that are rich with talent in their farm systems that the Giants could target. And so, the Giants, depending on the situation, might play hardball, and who knows what that's going to end up like.
I could see Cueto going somewhere like Houston or Chicago. I really could. I think Samardzija stays put. That's just my general feel. I think Samardzija plays his contract out in San Francisco.
I think so, too. I think it's too highly valued. I don't think another team's going to take him on because of his downside, but we'll see. So the other thing about Johnny Cueto, and I know this is back in April, and I had remembered reading it then. We didn't bring it up, but it's brought up now because of him being potential trade bait. But Andrew Baggerly did a story on him back in April, and the one thing that Cueto talked about was the lack of, quote, Latin chemistry in the Giants clubhouse. And that's partially because they lack a lot of Latin players. He had a lot of Latin teammates in Cincinnati and Kansas City. And so when they were talking to him about kind of the Giants clubhouse, which we've always known up until this year to have the best chemistry in all of the major leagues, literally since 2010. That's the one thing they've touted in media, in your memorabilia DVDs, on Sports Center, in all of these interviews, is the chemistry. This year, I've also heard reports that it's not necessarily there, but Cueto specifically said, quote, "When I was with Kansas City, it was a team, I think, it was a very happy bunch because we had a lot of players from the Dominican," Cueto said through his interpreter. "The same with Cincinnati, but here it's different. As Latins, we like to get together kind of loud and be a happy bunch. But here you look around and everyone is on their own, just sitting in their locker, very quiet, just by themselves. That's just how they are." So he wasn't saying it was a bad thing. It's just not something he's used to. And it could be a reason where I think he would opt out of his contract anyway in San Francisco, but that could be another reason for him to accept the trade.
I think it surprised him that it's that way because if you look at the history, you said back to 2010, Uribe was there. And Uribe was the Latin guy that kept all the Latin guys together and loose and loud and having fun in the clubhouse. And then it kind of transferred to Pablo. And Pablo was the guy to, keep that going. And then after 2014, after Pablo left, they really haven't had that same presence in the clubhouse. They haven't had just a strong vocal Latin presence. Mm-hmm. It's been mostly relief pitchers. And the guys that come up are like Calixte. They're young, so they're not going to, take that role. So I think that's part of it is there's no leader. Cueto, in essence, maybe I'm not trying to say he should, but maybe, if he could take the lead in that way, but if there's not enough players that he feels comfortable around to do that. And I get that. It's just different cultures. The Latin culture in and of itself, I live around it, is much louder, group gatherings and things like that. And, a bunch of white guys like Posey and Bumgarner and Crawford and
Belts and Panic and
right.
they
just go about their business. Yeah, they just go about their business, I'm sure, listen to their own music, look at their own video. Just
Strickland and
right.
Contos. Well, he's Greek, but you know what I'm saying.
Exactly. So I totally get what Johnny's saying. And it wouldn't shock me if that's like one of the main factors in him opting out if he stays with the club through the end of the year.
Yeah, no, it's interesting times for the Giants, and we're going to follow this obviously through the way. I mean, boy, one of the things that
right.
You know what we need? You know what we need? We need some sound of Buster Posey hugging puppies.
I love you. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Oh, you're my favorite. Yes, you are my favorite. Well, what's your name? Is your name? Is your name Buster? Yes, it is. Yes, it is, puppy, puppy, puppy. That's a good puppy.
Plot twist, we're the puppies.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Well, I mean, that's why we keep coming back, is because of guys like Buster. That's why we'll be here all year.
Oh, boy. Where am I? I lost my notes here for a second. Oh, there we are. So,
I was to say, you went to Muni, you saw the San Jose, you saw some Pence rehab work.
Yeah, so Hunter Pence, in his oft-injured state that he's in now, he is back with the club. He did rehab with San Jose over the weekend, and so I took the opportunity to go down with my son, actually, and go watch a game. Got some tickets in the front row for cheap. There's 800 people there or something like that. It was actually during game 1 of the NBA Finals, so I think that was the reason for the lack of people there. I was actually pretty surprised, but I bought seats right in front of the dugout and on deck circle. So, I mean, he was, 6 feet from us warming up and swinging the bat. And I think he went 1 for 4 for the night and had a couple plays out in right field. Nothing spectacular. He looked good, though. He looked like he was running well and throwing well in his awkward fashion that he always does. Looked like he was ready to go, so I'm sure that's why he was back with the club. But, I mean, it's kind of cool, when the Giants will send guys to San Jose because it'll be like convenient for them. If they're on the East Coast, they'll send them to Richmond.
Yeah.
On the West Coast, it could be Sacramento, but they decided San Jose on this night. I think it was because Sacramento was on the road. It doesn't matter where it is. It's literally just to get professional at bats. That's all it is. It's just to get an idea of where they are right now. But it's the same stadium I played 2 All-Star games in 2009 and 2011. So it's kind of cool to see Hunter Pence in the same batter's box that I stood in for about 8 at bats.
Did he look different? Because I've never seen a guy rehabbing like that. Is there like a difference in presence between him and the young guys that are fighting and trying to, hold on to their jobs?
I actually paid attention to that. And what was interesting is, I watched him in the dugout hanging on the rail because we were pretty close to him talking to the young guys. I saw him warming up before the game. I saw him talk to the catcher and the umpire as he approached the batter's box and say hi to the pitcher and that kind of thing. And I mean, there's just zero difference between him and the other players. And as far as a professional level, I think the other players just are like, all right, whatever. He's just another opponent or he's another teammate. But at the same time, I did see him talking to a lot of the young guys in the dugout during the game. And I think that's just pretty cool because he's not keeping to himself. I mean, he's engaging with all of these young guys, some of them which may never sniff the major leagues. And I'm sure he's telling stories and giving a kernel of knowledge or two here or there. But overall, there was definitely no wide-eyed young guys that I noticed. I'm sure pitchers facing him were, trying a little too hard and things like that. I mean, who knows what was going through their minds. But overall, I think if you didn't know if it was Hunter Pence or that it was Hunter Pence, you wouldn't even, think twice about it. So, yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting. And there were guys, unfortunately, from the stands that were, and I think you saw, well, there was a kid with the mascot and a lady taking photographs, but that's happened all game long as he got in the batter's box. People would just walk up to the netting in front of us and just stick their phones at him. And some people would walk up and go, "Hey Hunter! Hey Hunter! Hey Hunter! Hey Hunter! Hey Hunter! Hey Hunter! Hey Hunter!" I mean, it was unbelievable. You just want to slap him. Like, what the F are you doing, man? The guy's getting ready for an at-bat, and you're like literally trying to talk to him, including the guy to my left. So he would get up, walk down, and try to talk to him, and he'd come back, and he was pissed that he didn't talk to him. He's like, "Yeah, maybe next inning I'm going to bring a ball down to him." I'm like, dude, you can't do that. You can't do that. Like, that's no. That no player, even the young 19-year-old. No, you can't do that. Not during a game, but yeah, it's fans in San Jose. I think they're minor league fans. Maybe they're not nuanced with the culture and the
I think
social
they
attitude,
think since
but
he's a big league ball player and this is single A ball that he can handle talking to me while he's playing ball.
yeah, maybe this this game doesn't matter. He's just practicing or whatever. But I mean,
Right.
Hunter, of course, even though guys yelling at him 4 feet away, didn't turn around once. He just stayed the course. And I got to admit, that must be so freaking annoying. I mean, in a major league stadium, that's one thing because it always happens. But here you are at a minor league park. Guys are even closer to you. They could pretty much touch you. And
Did you see the Jay Bruce thing from a couple weeks ago? There was a guy. He was in the on deck circle. He was before an inning started, loosening up, and the guy said, "Hey, Jay, I remember." It was Joey Votto. He said, "Hey, Joey, I remember when you used to be good." And Votto's response was, "I remember when you used to be thin."
no,
And then yeah, right. And everybody laughed. And then he noticed the guy's filming, and he's like, I can't say anything else because you got nothing to lose, and I've got all sorts of things to lose.
exactly. Oh no, I didn't see that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. I mean, they're under the microscope, and you can't say or do anything, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I remember Tony Gwynn's son, right? Tony Gwynn Jr. when he was with the Dodgers 3 years ago or so, and he was in center field at AT&T Park. There's this classic video of people in center field barking all sorts of insults at him in center field. And in between every pitch, what he would do, he would put his glove behind his back, right? So every time someone would yell at him, he'd mouth like with his glove in cadence with the person who was yelling. So it was like his glove was just mimicking what they were saying. They're like, "Pat or Gwynn, you suck," and he was like, "Blip blip 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 blip," and then he'd stop, and then someone else would yell, and he would go, "Blip blip 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 blip," with his glove.
That's
That
a
was
clever way
classic.
of doing it.
Oh, it was so awesome. Actually, it endeared him to a lot of Giants fans because they were giggling and laughing in the stands. So
Absolutely. I'll tell you this, and then we'll move past this little part of that
Yeah,
I asked.
sorry.
Because I'm totally offshooting now myself. I was at Wrigley when I was a teenager, and Larry Walker was playing right field. And we were giving him all sorts of hell all game. All of us. The whole right field bleachers are all over him. Somebody ends up throwing down a tennis ball. Larry picks it up, tosses it in his pocket. In between batters, he's pulling it out, acting like he's going to throw it. People are screaming at him. One inning, Larry came back, pulled out a wad of hundreds from his pocket and just started counting them in front of us that are screaming at him from the right field bleachers. And I respected him ever since that. Apparently, Canadians know how to handle this stuff. I respected him forever at that. It was my greatest interaction with heckling and a ball player. Like some of them, they got to figure out a way to have fun with it just so they can get through it and deal with it. Because some guys, they keep the stone face and you're like, I know you want to say something and they don't. But guys like Larry Walker flashing his cash at us, I mean,
that's awesome.
it is. It makes the game fun. Who cares what team you root for in that moment? That player, you, fans, everybody's having a good time.
that's great.
Yeah,
So-
that's one of my favorite stories. Sorry.
We mentioned it earlier, but Austin Slater got called up. Pence was activated after his San Jose rehab stint. And then Arroyo, which 2 weeks ago we were let this kid play. He just he's like 152 over his last 30. Overall, he's hitting 192. They sent him down to AAA. And, of course, he hits a 2-run home run tonight in Sacramento. So it was like, oh, he's back. But, I don't disagree with the move at this point. He was struggling, and I think they called him up and they needed him, and he performed really well in the beginning. But I think everything started to catch up to him. I think the league understood who he was. We're pitching to his weaknesses, and I guess it's at the point you don't want to crush the guy's soul. That he has options, and so they exercised it because he's not going to make the difference at this point.
No, I think in a sense he might realize. I hope he realizes that they sent him down partly to showcase Nooney and to make sure Arroyo continued to get at bats. Because even if he's struggling, they want him to fight through it. And no, the AAA pitchers are not going to keep burning him on that outside corner like the major league guys have. And he'll be able to adjust and get some confidence back. But I suspect we're going to see him in August or late July after Nunez gets traded.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely going to be back up. Either September call up, or if they trade away Nunez, that he's just going to replace him if he's doing well in Sacramento. They certainly. We're always talking about the Giants' power outage right now, but these stats are just mind-boggling. They are last in all of the major leagues with 44 home runs. But the thing is that they're a full 9 home runs behind Boston, who has 53. Houston, of course, is leading the universe with 90. But if you look at individuals, I thought this was kind of interesting. I was looking at this. 2 A's, Chris Davis and Alonso, have 33, just the 2 of them. And if you add Healy's 11, those 3 players have as many as the entire Giants roster. 44.
Pathetic.
Between 3 players. On the A's, who suck! I mean, they suck! So
and
it's
their
not like...
ballpark is, like, huge.
Yeah, it's not exactly Great American Ballpark, right? I mean, it's not the hardest to hit in, but it's definitely not the easiest. Washington has 41 between Zimmerman, Harper, and either Murphy or Rendon, who both have 10. So those 3, of course, almost match the Giants' entire roster. It's amazing when you see it. Yes, they play in AT&T Park, but even when you have the park-adjusted home runs, it doesn't boost it a tremendous amount, and they'll still be pretty much in last or second to last place. So, I mean, they really do lack the power, and when you're playing games where, the pitching is just struggling, and especially, and I was listening to Cam Bear earlier today, and they were bringing up a good point. In this era of the overshift, right, which has really accelerated over the last 2 years or so, the percentage of overshifts have greatly increased because, of course, the spray charts, and they know where hitters tend to hit the balls, and they have all these statisticians saying, this kind of pitcher and this kind of pitch, he's got an 80% chance of hitting the left side or the right side, that kind of stuff. It's very hard, at least it's harder now than it was maybe 5-10 years ago, to string together 5-6 hits out in an inning, because you're going to have a lot of these hits cut off by these shifts. And so it's harder to manufacture runs than it used to be. And so the home run really has become more valuable than it was 5 or 10 years ago.
They haven't hit a 3-run home run this season.
And they had that streak of 18 or 19 solo shots in a row, and everybody was crushed when who was it? Williamson hit that 2-run home run. Yeah,
and that's the only homer he hit this year. That's how pathetic it is, though. I was watching Cubs-Cards last night. Both teams hit a 3-run homer. The Giants, since the beginning of the season, can't do it.
Haven't hit a single one.
No, they can't even string together the hits and have the one big hit. They have the one big hit, and then they have another hit behind it, and then they just go silent. I don't know what they have to do to get more power. I mean, they better players. I mean, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
it's almost to the point where it's sad. I get that the ballpark, like you said, it plays that way, but I mean, how can you not have a 3-run homer over 2 months into the season?
Yeah, I think Posey's still at 12 RBI. I mean, it's worse than we.
14, I think.
It's worse. It's worse than we thought. I think we were thinking he might have 30 by the All-Star break. I don't think that's going to happen, man.
Yeah.
I don't think he's even going to hit 30 by the All-Star break. I mean, that's that bad. And he's still hitting 340 or 350. I mean, he's hitting. It's just no one's getting on. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But,
and it's not. It doesn't seem like it's going to change either. And if it does suddenly start changing, it's honestly, I feel like it's too late.
Yeah. I mean, schmuck utility guys have way more RBI than he does. It's just crazy. It's embarrassing, and I'm sure he's not too happy about it, but he doesn't, he's not going to talk about it. He's not going to chirp about it, but he's not going to be one of those guys that apparently is going to hit 1,500 RBI, in his 15th or 16th year. That's not happening. So
thanks, other Giants.
Thanks, other Giants. The Strickland Harper thing was a big topic a week ago. Not as much now. It's kind of blown over, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. I just want to mention it. Just my personal thoughts real quickly. Strickland, of course, gave up the 2 home runs in 2014 to Bryce Harper, and this was his first at-bat against him since those home runs. And We talked about it. They knew it might happen. I didn't see it live, but I in the series I thought, oh, well, if they ever face each other, Harper better watch out. And it was the very first pitch. I mean, the very first pitch, 98-mile-an-hour heater right in the hip. And, Harper goes at him, throws his helmet like 3 miles to his right, which was funny in itself.
It was hilarious.
And, it's like they had all these like cartoons of his helmet getting lost in the alternate dimension and ending up with SpongeBob and stuff. It was funny, but the reality is I don't like Bryce Harper. I don't. I think he's a schmuck. I think he's an egotistical dick. I think all of those things because he's one hell of a baseball player. But he had every single right to go for Hunter Strickland. Every right
Absolutely.
in my mind. And it sucks because Hunter Strickland, look, I understand when pitchers need to throw at someone. They need to defend their guys who maybe just got hit, or if there's a more recent issue that happened during the year or during the series. But for something that happened 3 years ago, and Bryce Harper brought up great points, he's like, I don't understand. Yeah, I hit a couple home runs off of him. They won the World Series. He can look down at his ring. I can't. Why is he still holding a grudge? It doesn't matter. And that is so true. The best revenge was winning the fucking World Series, was beating the Nationals and winning the World Series. And it just shows you how immature, which we've cited Hunter Strickland as being multiple times because of his, hit my heater, hit my heater, hit my heater kind of mentality that he has. And additionally, in the post-game interview, oh, yeah, it just got away from me, with like a smile, a little wry smile and things like that. I just don't have any respect for it. Look, I'm a Giants fan, but I will absolutely call a Giant out when I think they're full of shit. And you had Buster Posey not going out there, which there's many reasons that could have happened. It could have been he didn't care. He was ordered not to go, which I don't believe, because even if he was, you'd react. But I think what happened is that Buster knew it was coming. And either A, he said, Hunter, this is yours. I don't give a shit. Or two, Hunter asked for it and said, Buster, I'm throwing at him. Don't get in the way. Either way, that's what I think would happen. I don't think Buster was apathetic about it or protecting himself. I think he was just like, this is his deal. He didn't defend him. Bochy didn't defend him in the post-game comments and basically said it was embarrassing. No one came to his defense, and it just sucks because it's like, what did this prove, Hunter? What did it prove? It proved nothing. It made you look like an ass. And then you get suspended for 6 games.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm pretty much in line with your take. I'm a little more extreme, actually. I wish Hunter Strickland was off the team already. I find what he did to be selfish, way beyond immature selfish. To score a 3-year – it was a 2-run game with 2 outs in the 8th inning.
Yeah.
Why are you going to go settle the score then? Your team needs this game right now. And his selfishness got in the way. And not only did his selfishness cause Harper to get on and then that run to score. And so, 3 runs is a lot harder than 2 runs. Yep. They lost that game. As a result of the pile, Samardzija and Morse slamming into each other, Morse gets knocked out with a concussion.
Yeah,
and frankly, he might be done with his baseball career because he was struggling anyways. And that'd be a real shitty way to go out.
Yes,
for Hunter Strickland's pettiness to cause a concussion for him. And then, I don't know how he's feeling. I don't know if he's, feeling better or whatnot. But it's a distinct possibility that was the last game he played on a baseball field because he wasn't going to go play anywhere else but San Francisco when the season started. So I don't, that's an entirely possible thing. It's all this domino effect. The Giants are eventually going to have to play, short a man for the 6 or 5 games, whatever it ends up being. So I really wish Strickland was off the team. I don't condone it at all. I don't hate Harper as much as everybody else seems to. Just because I don't know. I don't take him as personally. He's a hell of a ball player. I love watching him play.
He is.
Yeah, I think
San
that's what
Francisco
does
too.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Now,
does.
maybe not
but
now.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it just came out. He kind of like Chicago, but for his side of it, I agreed with Harper, and for everybody that was trying to dissect whether or not he was actually trying to throw the helmet or he stopped trying to throw it at the last second. No, he was trying to throw that helmet. Chad can attest. He's thrown plenty of baseball equipment in his life as well, I'm sure. And if you try to throw a helmet from the brim, you have to throw it just right so it even goes straight. Because more often than not, you have to kind of throw it side on if you want it to go any distance. And if you throw it over the top like that, it's going to drift to the heavy side anyways, which is what he did. So there's no way he thought about it in that split second. He totally wanted to hit him with that helmet, and I don't blame him. So
No, I
wish
agree.
I wish Strickland was off the team, and Harper absolutely could have landed a couple more punches, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, enough of that, Hunter Strickland.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Bastard.
Yeah. Get
All
out
right,
of the
so we're going to get to who's hot. So we talked about Shark earlier tonight. He got the win tonight. The Giants win. His last 7 starts, 59 strikeouts, and one. Uno. Walk. Unbelievable.
Make it 8 starts and 69 Ks,
Thank
still
you.
1 walk.
Thank you. Yeah, that was before tonight's start. So 69
Yeah,
to 1. I mean, that's just stupid, guys. I mean, his ERA is now down to, I think, 4.29, if that's still current, because that was in the 8th inning there when he was still pitching. But whatever. You know, he was hovering above 6 for a lot of this season, so his ERA has been healthily cut down. So he's definitely hot. Posey, as usual, 318 over his last 7. During that stretch, Noah the Giant is over 300. Ty Block, of course, he had his complete game shutout last game. But over his last 5 starts, he has 37 2/3 innings pitched, and he has a 1.91 ERA and a .98 WHIP. So this dude is showcasing, man. I mean, so I know he's technically replacing Bumgarner, and Bumgarner would have been no better than him. Absolutely not. I mean, he is absolutely dominating right now. It's just the question of, the 5th starter and, Bum was still in it. But again, I don't think it would have made a difference of more than a couple 3 wins. George Kontos, who's had his ups and downs recently, quietly, I would say. 12 innings pitched, 1.5 ERA, and just like him, Morris is 11 2/3 with a 1.54 ERA. But that's about where it ends.
Yeah, Morris has been a nice revelation. He's been a guy that's decided to step up as opposed to Strickland, Law, and others that we're about to talk about.
But then we have who's not, and these are guys that
Then there's something wrong with you. You're certainly not very good.
they're not very good, as President Trump said. So Matt Moore's road ERA is up to 7.94, getting obliterated there in Philadelphia. Josh Osich, even with his mustache, over the last 10 innings is 5.40 ERA. Mac Williamson, despite that amazing 2-run home run he had a couple of weeks ago, is 5 for his last 31. That's a $1.61. And Caliste, hey, I always forget how to pronounce his name.
I'm with you.
Caliste, I heard. It was Caliste. Anyway, he had 2 hits in his first 2 at-bats. Everyone was like, who is this guy? Oh, my gosh, this is amazing. Well, since then, he's 2 for his last 19, which is kind of what we all expected at some point. And then the aforementioned Brandon Belt, a very large sample size, 100 at-bats over his last 30 days. He has 22 hits. So that's a 220 average over his last 30 days. And so that's not good. That's not good, guys. And I could go down the list. There's even more, but I wanted to not make it completely depressing and save some time.
No.
So
Well, I'll give it.
you don't need to know everyone who's doing badly.
Right, I'll give a tip of the cap to Kelby, who is now 4 for 13 as a pinch hitter.
As a
and
pinch hitter, that's right, yeah.
I think that's pretty good. I think Kelby is grabbing that backup role, and he's trying to stay at the big club all year. So I think that's good. 4 for 13 pinch hitting. That's not bad. That's better than Morse was doing.
That's awesome. All right, so coming up, they won tonight in Milwaukee. They have 3 more in Milwaukee, and then they're back home for 3 versus Minnesota. I'd love to get to one of these games. I don't know if it's going to happen with my personal schedule, but stay tuned for that. But again, I mean, Milwaukee's in first place in the Central, and Minnesota's in first place. So they're traditionally not very good clubs, and so maybe the Giants can make up for what they did versus Philadelphia. But hopefully, they're certainly not juggernauts. Let's put it that way. I mean, if
Giants
you look at
are totally going 7-0 this week against.
you look at the Milwaukee lineup tonight, and I didn't even recognize the names. I was like, "Who are these guys?" Like, I follow baseball, and I don't know these guys. So it's just weird, man. It's weird when you see guys that look like they're from a video game. You don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
They're made
It'd
up.
be hilarious though if the Giants go on a roll here against first place Milwaukee and first place Minnesota after losing 2 out of 3 to the Phillies.
Yeah, but that's what they need as far as baseball karma.
Yeah.
Just in honor of the 4-9 record, I don't really have a favorite guy right now. I don't know if you do, but I'm passing on that tonight.
No, I mean I can't even give it to. I mean, a tip of the cap to Calixte and Slater for getting their first major league hits over the last few days.
There you go.
And I think we might be saying that a few more times this year about other players.
There's going to be some more call-ups.
Yes.
We should hate this guy. We already hated on him, but we have to mention him again because we hate him so much right now. But we're both going with Hunter Strickland. So it is interesting because I know every fan base is different and not every fan base will be unified in their opinion. But it was pretty interesting to see a lot of Giants fans on social media, I should say, not overall, but just the ones on social media. I saw a higher percentage than I would like to have seen defending Strickland and thinking that, you know, Harper was the jackass in the situation. And I just don't see it from their perspective. I just don't. I don't understand. But these are fans that may not have the full history. They may not be fully versed in baseball acumen and the unwritten rules and all of these things, or they're just so bandwagon that it doesn't matter. If you attack a Giant, you're the asshole. But it's like Giants fans, if you're listening to this podcast, you got to understand there's a reason he did it, and it's childish, it's immature. It was 3 years ago. The best revenge was winning the World Series. And it was a situation where the Giants were still in the game, and like Eric said, it caused them to fall back another run. And it's unfortunate. And the Giants also did not support him. So I think you have to take that as a cue as well. If the Giants aren't supporting him, then you just can't.
I'll say this about our listeners. Most of them, and probably, you know what, all of our listeners are knowledgeable baseball fans. So I'm sure that none of them were taking Hunter Strickland's side.
Not a single one.
Right. But if they happen to know somebody who felt that way, I'd be surprised, because any knowledgeable baseball fan knows that Hunter Strickland was in the wrong in this one particular situation.
So why we'll win it all, we kind of revived the last couple of podcasts, and I like Eric's little snort laugh there. That's just, we're skipping that. So skipping that. I
didn't see it coming. I was looking
technically,
away.
I put in whelp, but technically you could put in if they play 900 ball the rest of the way, something stupid like that. But we can't even create some magical reasoning here other than an alternate reality in which they won merges with our universe or our dimension, and they somehow swap records. Other than that, it's just not going to happen. So
this is where a plane crash joke can get made, but I'm gonna stay away from it for the sake of not sounding like a jerk.
Oh man. All right, well, thanks for listening to episode 124 of the TortureCast. You can follow us collectively at TortureCast on Twitter or like us on Facebook. Find us there. Just Google or search for the name. You can follow us individually at ChadK21 for myself, at 2 Out Hits. That's the number 2 Out Hits for Eric. And Willie is streaming tonight, so you can follow him at Willie Dills, and Ben at Fried Duck. That's with 2 Ds. So you have anything to pimp or talk about, Eric?
No, I'll probably put something together later in the week after the Milwaukee game Thursday. Thursday seems to be a good day. I'd like to highlight some bright spots that we can look for in the season. So Giants fans can look for something about. I don't know. I'm going to look for something positive. I'm not going to think they can win, but instead of all this crap that they've had to deal with, it'd be nice to find something positive coming out of this season.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna try to do something like that.
So, Giants baseball has always been like this, but Kipe definitely sums it up.
Giants baseball, torture.
It is definitely torture these days. So anyway, thanks for listening to episode 124. We'll catch you on the flip side of 125. For Eric, this is Chad signing off. We'll see you next time. A-boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.